Systemic racism, still a reality. Imagine walking into a job interview knowing your qualifications won't matter as much as the sound of your name. Imagine attending an underfunded school simply because of the neighborhood you live in, while students just a few miles away have access to better books, teachers, and resources. Imagine that this isn't just a thought, it's the reality of millions of Americans. We like to believe that racism ended with the civil rights movement, that the laws changed and so did society. But sadly, the truth is far more uncomfortable. Systemic racism still exists, and it's woven into the very things that shape our lives: our education, our housing, employment, and everyday freedoms. Today, I want to show you the overwhelming evidence that proves systemic racism is still a reality. But more importantly, I want to show you that change is possible if we're willing to acknowledge the truth and take action together. We can't solve a problem we refuse to see, and unfortunately, systemic racism is a problem that many still deny or misunderstand. It's not always about hateful individuals or overt discrimination. It's about patterns, deep historical patterns, that continue to disadvantage certain groups while benefiting others. Let's look at where systemic racism shows up today. Exposing it in our daily lives and institutions allows us to understand why we need more than awareness. We need change. Systemic racism shows up in places we don't always expect, and it harms millions of people every day. It's not about individual hatred. It's about structures, policies, and practices that create unequal outcomes. Let's start with the criminal justice system. Did you know Black Americans are more likely to be stopped, searched, arrested, and given longer prison systems than white Americans for the exact same crimes? According to the U.S. Sentencing Commission, Black men receive sentences that are, on average, 19% longer than those given to white men for similar and sometimes more harsh offenses. Practices like stop and frisk have disproportionately targeted Black and Latina Americans for years, despite crime rates being the same in those very communities. Now, let's talk about education and housing. Because of a long history of redlining, which is the practice of Black families being denied mortgages in certain areas or steered into undervalued neighborhoods. That sounds like today's version of segregation. Okay, I'll continue. And because public schools are funded mostly by property taxes, schools in poor neighborhoods, mostly Black and Latina, receive far less funding than schools in the wealthier, whiter areas. This means fewer resources, less access to technology, and larger class sizes, which of course makes it harder for students to succeed. When we talk about the economy, I bet you didn't know the boldest and most adamant signs of systemic racism is the racial wealth gap. According to the Federal Reserve, the average white family in the U.S. has nearly 8 times more wealth than the average Black family. And it's not just income, it's generational wealth also. In the past, although now disfavored, Black families were denied access to home ownership, business loans, and college education. That has long-lasting consequences. Some we're still trying to overcome. Studies have even shown that job applicants with white-sounding names are more likely to get called for interviews than those with Black-sounding names, even when their resumes are exactly the same. Now, these aren't isolated examples, they're patterns. Patterns built into the systems we rely on today. So, what can we do about it? By acknowledging that systemic problems can be changed with systemic solutions, we can take action in three key areas: policy, education, and personal responsibility. First, we need policies that focus on equity, not just equality. That means reforming the criminal justice system with measures like ending cash bail, eliminating sentencing disparities, and increasing accountability for police misconduct. It also means investing in public education and affordable housing, especially in historically underserved communities. Second, we need to change how we educate ourselves and others. Systemic racism isn't just an issue, it's a historical issue. Schools should teach honest history, including how slavery, segregation, and redlining still shape American society today. And beyond the classroom, we should seek out books, documentaries, and conversations that challenge our understanding of race and privilege. Third, we must act as individuals and as a community. This means supporting minority-owned businesses, voting for leaders who prioritize racial equality, and speaking up when we see injustice, whether it's in the workplace, on social media, or in our families. Silence and inaction only help the oppression continue. No one can fix this alone, but everyone taking small intentional steps can make a difference. Let's imagine two possible futures. The first one, we take action. We push for policies to change inequality. We educate ourselves and those around us. We stop making excuses. And most importantly, we start listening to those who've been impacted by the systemic racism. In this future, we represent the values we claim to hold, which are justice, fairness, and equal opportunity. Our schools are better funded, our communities are more inclusive, and our workplaces reflect diversity. Now, imagine the second future, the one where we do nothing. We look away, we stay silent, we tell ourselves and others that racism ended decades ago, and even though experiences say otherwise, we still tell ourselves that. In this future, the gaps grow wider, mistrust deepens, tensions rise, and the promise of equal opportunity becomes even more hollow. Which future do you want to shape? Because whether we admit it or not, doing nothing is a choice, and that choice has consequences. Systemic racism didn't appear overnight, and it won't disappear overnight. But that doesn't mean we're powerless. We can choose to stay informed, to stay engaged, and to speak up, especially when it's uncomfortable. We can support policies that promote equity, vote for leaders who prioritize justice, and challenge systems that continue to harm marginalized communities. You don't have to be an expert, nor do you need to be a politician to make a difference. You just have to care enough to act. So I challenge you. Don't let this be just another speech you've heard. Let it be a turning point. Read, learn, listen, speak, vote, and stand up. Because silence does nothing, and it allows injustice to thrive. But action, your action, can help end it. Thank you.